Hey, welcome back to the Flip Side of Death podcast. I'm your host, Lynn Stone, and today I have a very special guest. Her name is Tiffany, and I will go ahead and let Tiffany tell you a little bit about herself. So go ahead, Tiff.
Hi, Lynn. So I was widowed in 2020. So my husband Mike and I had been married for 14 years. Our kids were 5 and 7 at the time. And he died very suddenly. So it was just over Mother's Day. He
Oh,
basically went into the ER with a pretty bad stomach ache and like intense stomach pains. And this had happened once before, about 2 years prior, and the doctor told him that his pancreas had been inflamed and that he should take a step back, like take a month off or so from drinking alcohol regularly, and then kind of just ease back into like a normal amount of consumption. And so I guess long story short, basically he ended up in the hospital for the same thing again. And this time, instead of that, his body calming down after some rest and hydration, his body shut down and all of his organs just shut down while he was in the hospital. Um, so he was in the ICU pretty quickly. It was about 7 weeks into COVID. I couldn't go in and visit him. And so he spent about one full day in the hospital in the ICU. I could hardly communicate with him. And then in the middle of the night, we got that call that he had, that basically that he had gone into cardiac arrest and they were working on him. And then 20 minutes later, got the official call.
wow.
Yeah. So thankfully, my dad had been over at the house since we knew we're kind of in crisis mode already. The
Yeah.
kids were sleeping. And, then from about 3 a.m. till 7 when they woke up, we just kind of sat there and thought about, like, how do you tell your kids this
Yeah.
news? And
Yeah. I mean, certainly not anything that anyone teaches you or tells you, or, I'm sure someone wrote a book somewhere on how to break the news to your kids, but nothing that either of us would have purchased just
who reads
on a
it before
whim,
their
right?
spouse dies? No, especially
Right.
suddenly.
Yeah.
So
Wow. I'm so sorry.
yeah, so I don't know if you had children or young children at the time of your husband's death, but that is a whole thing in and of itself, and holding yourself together while also trying to raise grieving kids and
Yes.
the different ways everybody in the house grieves and the family and
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah. And I can certainly relate. I had, my daughter was 7 whenever her dad passed, and he didn't have any time in the hospital. He died in bed beside me. So that
Okay.
was, I woke up and he didn't. And so that was kind of our story. And, you know, that's kind of the same thing that you kind of went through, except for you kind of had someone to bounce it off of. It was, I was just sitting there like, okay, how am I going to tell my kids? Because it was my daughter. And then my stepson was living with us, and he was 13. Um, so she woke up because she saw the lights. So I called 911, and of course the ambulance comes and the fire truck comes, and her room was in the front, and the lights from the vehicles are what woke her up. And so she came out and she says, "Mommy, is are the police cops here?" Because that's what she called the police. She said, "Are the police cops here?" And I said, "No, honey." I said, "Is Daddy going to jail?" "No, honey, that's not what's going on." And of course, I'm sitting in the couch, still in my pajamas. I'm just sitting there, and there's people kind of all milling around the house. So I just told her, and I'm thinking like, how do I tell her this? And my answer that I came up with was, well, Daddy's in heaven with great grandpa, because that's the only person she knew of that had died up to
Yeah.
that point. So that's how I broke it to her. And she's kind of looked at me, and then someone else had come in and said something, and then she went. I didn't know this at the time, but she ran into her brother's room, woke him up, and told him
Oh,
that
wow.
Daddy died. Yeah, so he came out. He thought that she was playing a joke on him,
Yeah, of course.
and so he came out, and he's like, "What's going on?" And when he came out, no, like none of the people were there, so it was just me sitting there. And so he sat down beside me, and I told him, and it was very rough. So I
Yeah.
can completely relate to what you went through with that.
Yeah.
Um, so I mean, the time afterwards you had your dad, how long was did your dad live nearby you, or did he come in?
Yeah, so we were living just outside of Chicago. They're in the Chicago suburbs. So, yeah, I think for many weeks after my husband died, family stayed with me. So my parents stayed for a few nights. My in-laws, my cousin came from DC and lived with us for about 7 weeks.
Wow.
She's a very close friend of mine, and she had the ability to do that at the time. And
Yeah.
so that was really lovely. I did not want to be in the house by myself. It just felt nice for me to have people there. And
Oh, for sure. And for the
yeah, and
kids
actually
too.
what kind of started the travel interest for me was my cousin who came to be with us said, I have a condo in Crested Butte, Colorado. Do you want to just go? Let's just go.
Let's
And we
just
were right
go.
near the end of the school year. And I was a teacher at the time. And thankfully, I was able to take the days off, obviously, right after he died until the summer. So the day the kids let out of school, not that they were really it was COVID, it was crazy time,
Right. Right. They
But
were home.
yeah, they were home. Yeah. But basically, after the last day of school, we just drove west to the mountains and spent like a couple weeks.
Wow.
And it was one of those things where it was very surreal, the whole time. It was like very grief filled. And I remember listening to a lot of like our music and crying a ton and looking at pictures you know, but I also remember there being something where you're in nature and you're just like, I felt like there is such a peace here that I just wasn't feeling at home. And
Right.
frankly, I just wanted to run away. I
Oh, for
mean, I'm not
sure.
going to pretend like I didn't.
Yeah. No, I
Uh,
get that.
and it just felt nice to like, have something for the kids to do and
Yeah.
be somewhere else. So I
Yeah.
think that really started me being like, oh, I'm gonna spend a lot of time running away.
Yeah. Very good. So you said you were a teacher. Did that did you wind up getting out of teaching and going into like traveling? Like, how did that transition happen?
Yeah, so I was teaching kindergarten at the time. Everybody in my family thought that it would be a very good idea for me to go back to work the next year.
Oh,
Like nobody knew, like
yeah.
nobody knew what to say or do.
Yeah.
Nobody had been through this, and so everybody was like, I think it'll be good for you. And I was like, okay, I guess so. We were going into another year of COVID, and I was going to be teaching kindergarten again, exclusively outside because it was COVID. And my 5-year-old son was going to be in my class.
Mm.
So it was insanely challenging. Like
I bet.
teaching itself is emotionally challenging. During COVID was a whole nother level. And then to be doing that while grieving,
Right.
just months after my husband had died was kind of ridiculous. Thankfully, I had a co-teacher who was really wonderful. But about halfway through that year, I went to the administration and said, so I'm taking every Friday off from now on because I can't do this every day. And, they couldn't really say much. It was like
Yeah.
either that or I left. And
Yeah.
so that we made that happen. And then the following school year, I just ended up taking a part-time job with the school. I was teaching PE and that was much more manageable.
Yeah.
And in the other part of the time, I started sort of like venturing into other things to support and walk alongside the widow community. So I had started this podcast, Dating After Death, since that had started to become a thing for me. And
Yeah. How was
really
that?
felt
How did that go for you? It's like, did
dating.
you, well, dating and like doing a podcast about dating? I mean, that's really cool. How was that?
Um, I mean, dating was so interesting, right? Because it was like I never really dated. I certainly never dated online.
Yeah.
Um, so trying to figure out like that whole new language you have to learn when you're
Mhm.
meeting people online and trying to form a relationship with somebody over text message. It was an experience. And I kind of did it like rapid fire because with the kids, I was like, if I could get like 12 hours or 24 hours where the kids could sleep over at someone else's house, I would just line up dates and meet a bunch of people so that I could make use of the time.
Yeah.
Um,
I did that too, actually, the second time around.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow, that's awesome. And so you turned it
Yeah.
into a podcast though?
Well, because, at the time we were still sort of just coming out of COVID. There wasn't a lot of like widow content creators, for lack of a better term. And there weren't many people talking about this kind of thing. And I just felt like, well, I'm doing it. I'm dating. I can
Yeah,
talk about it.
sure. Why
So
not?
I did it anonymously for quite some time because I wanted to say things that I didn't want people to associate to me.
I get that.
Um, And yeah, it was really great. I just did, story conversations with lots of different people, and the feedback was excellent. And I think it helped people feel like, okay, this kind of sucks for all of us and it's challenging and we can do it.
So I think that's really cool. And honestly, that's kind of why I got into this too, is because there's just like, there's some people that are talking about it, but there's just not enough people talking about it. And,
Yeah.
my that's kind of what I went from like the I call it the flip side, because you talk about the planning and the preparation and all that stuff. And then it flips over to, what are people doing that have gone through it? What are
Yeah.
what have they gone through? What are their experiences, the challenges and stuff. I mean, I people don't know, the dating after being widowed is so weird. It's just such a weird dynamic, because you're still in love with your spouse that passed away, but now you're trying to kind of fill a space, because we're still young, we're
Yeah.
still very much alive and trying to live the rest of our lives, and we don't want to be by ourselves, and you've got kids that you're trying to raise, and
Yeah.
what a crazy thing. So I am
And
curious
and there is a lot too about like, it's not just like you're meeting somebody new. It's like you have this whole life with somebody before, and even though you're really trying not to compare lives, you had a certain expectation for your life.
oh, for sure, you had
And like when
plans
you
and
bring a whole new
goals,
person into it, it inevitably is going to change you and your expectations and just everything. I
everything.
mean, yeah, even through the first couple of years of being married, there's still a lot of like mental things that happen where you're just like, is this normal? Is this the right path? Is
Right.
it?
Yeah, when you're trying to learn each other, and so
Mhm.
you're learning each other, and you're figuring yourself out, figuring them out, and you're usually young, so in some
Yep.
cases you're not even fully developed.
Yeah.
So all these things, then you start bringing kids into the mix, and the whole thing.
Yeah. One
um
of the biggest things for me that I think about regularly now that I'm remarried is how, there was this version of me with Mike that lived this beautiful life with him. And then there was a version of me after Mike died where I was raising my kids by myself. And you have to be fiercely independent, whether you want to be or not. It's like you
yep,
are responsible for everything.
yep,
And then when you meet somebody new, and if you remarry, you have to surrender a little bit of
yeah.
that independence again. And that can be a struggle. Like you're used to doing everything your way now. And it's like,
Yeah,
okay, now I need to be a person who compromises again with a
right.
new person.
So interestingly, I'm going through that now. So I'm engaged, and we're supposed to get married next month, because it's June.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And I'm very much I'm very fiercely independent, just like you said. Like, I've been doing this. I've been widowed for 11 years, and I've had a couple boyfriends. I had a long term boyfriend. We were together for 5 years, and that just didn't work. And then I had one for like a year and a half, and then I met the current guy, and my fiance. And I've just been so used to just doing it. Like I've been like, I pay the bills. I own my house. I do, like, my daughter's getting ready to graduate from high school. Now I happen to get pregnant, so now I have a little one again, a 2-year old. So like kind of starting over with all of that. But the fierce independence, um, that's definitely something that is a challenge for me. And letting, number one, letting someone in, of course, adding another human to the mix, but letting someone into your life and really surrendering,
Yeah.
to what, because you've formed, like, you had to become this new version of yourself.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, so I mean, that really resonates with me, the independence piece, because that's something that I'm just that relying on someone again and taking, really just taking the chance again. And because I'm sure you feel this way too. It's like, it's still like a little thing in the back of your mind that, what
What if I have
happens
to be on
if,
my own again?
yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know. I have found like there has been a lot of nice relief for me in allowing my now husband to like care for things and do things that I was like, no, I can do it. I can do it. He's like, yeah, I know you can,
Mhm.
but like, just let me, you
Yeah.
know, and that's been really nice. But yeah, you're right. That thought always creeps into my head. Like, but I still need to stay capable in case it's just me again,
That's right. That's right. Like it's a control thing, I think. I mean, for me, it is anyways. Like, just having that, like, still having that control, because if something happens to him, it's back. Like, it's back to me.
Yeah.
So that's, I feel good about, that. I feel very validated in my thought process from someone that's, going through that and been through it. So whenever you talked about, you were talking about Mike, were you guys like into traveling? Like, is that kind of what helped to bolster this, or was it just that trip to Colorado that really just kind of set you go in that direction?
On a new life trajectory. No, Mike and I were not. We did a lot of domestic travel, lots of road trips, see family, see friends, things like that. But I was always that kind of person that, like, if you said, if you won the lottery, what would you do? It was like hands down, travel the world, easy, you know. And when I met my now husband, pretty early in our relationship, he was like, "Hey, do you want to go to Dubai?" And I was like, "What? Is that a thing people do?"
Yeah, right.
And it wasn't just like that. He was like, "Do you want to go to Dubai for the weekend?" And I was like, "Yeah, people don't go to Dubai for the weekend." But I took a risk and we went, and it really just opened my eyes to like the amount of things I don't know
Yeah.
about the world.
Yeah.
Like I arrived and all I had was questions. Like, why are these people dressed like that? How is she doing now? There were so many questions. And I don't know, I guess I think of myself as a pretty introspective person. And I was like, I know nothing about the world. I live in a little bubble. And I was just like, I want to see it all.
Yeah.
And also on that trip, it was like such a small moment that ended up actually just kind of changing my life trajectory. But we were at an airport on a layover and he said, let's go check out the lounges. And I was like, oh, you're so fancy. You travel for work, you get a airport lounge. And he was like, no, it's not because I travel for work. I just have the right credit card. And I was like, what do you mean? And he was like, yeah, if you just have like a credit card that gives you lounge access, you can get airport lounge access all around the world. And I was like, I did not know that. I thought this was only for fancy work people.
Right. Yeah, me too. Okay.
Yeah.
Go on.
Yeah. And right. So when we got back from that trip, I just started researching like what card do you need and what are the other perks. And I ended up taking a little like some lady on the internet made this tiny little course and I ended up taking it and finding it and just learned all about using points and miles to travel. And the first year that I learned about this, I earned over 1 million points just myself, just like with
Oh my
regular
gosh.
spending. And then I fast forward about a year, I had planned for the kids and I to spend a year traveling around the world, and I took them out of school and I took leave from my job and I used almost exclusively points to fly us around the world for like 7
Wow.
months.
That's so cool.
It was, yeah. And so I felt like very motivated to tell other people, like all along the way, I was just like, you guys, do you know about like, it sounds fake, but it's real. And you can fly for free places and you can stay in hotels, like 5-star hotels for free. And so I just started telling people. And then once I got back from that trip around the world, I realized like, no, I want to actually like, I think other widows could benefit from this. This is
For
like,
sure.
not only are they on a single income, but people need relief from widow life. And
Yeah.
it doesn't have to be a trip around the world. It can just be like to visit your family and you stay in the hotel for free, or you can fly across the country or whatever it is. But like, I think it takes a lot of the guilt away if it's financially responsible. So
Sure.
I've sort of made it my mission to teach other widows how to do this.
No, that is a fabulous mission. So you mentioned about a single income. So how does someone travel that's on a single income? I mean, you mentioned about, taking a short flight to go see family or whatever, but how does someone do that?
Yeah. So the way the system works is, banks really want people's business, right? Because most of America, sadly, is very bad at using credit cards.
Yeah.
And yeah, and so they bank on the fact that you're also going to be bad at it. But if you are the kind of person that can pay off a credit card in full every month, so basically just use it like a debit card. So instead of overspending it all, you just literally swap out the plastic, use a credit card instead of a debit card, pay it off in full every month. If you do that for 3 months in a row and spend a certain amount of money, they will give you like a huge influx of points into an account. And so like the actual numbers on that look like maybe spending $1,300 or $1,400 a month for 3 months in a row. And then they'll give you maybe 60 or 75,000 points. And
Wow.
for that amount of points, you can typically get like a couple round trip tickets to Europe, or you could get several flights across the country. It really depends on where you're going and how much flexibility you have.
Yeah.
If you're going to get 75,000 points, at the very least, that's $750 of free travel, and can be more like $1,500 to $2,000 of free travel or more.
Wow. So
Yeah.
you said bank. So like what cards would do that? Like is that like a Discover card or the Capital One, or who would you go through for that?
Yeah. So pretty much all of the major banks have some travel rewards cards.
Okay.
And there's a few different categories of cards. There are some that are giving you travel points. So like what I was just talking about, where it's good for all travel. It can be flights or rental cars or hotels. So Chase has cards like that, Capital One, American Express, Wells Fargo, Built, all these different banks. And then there are also cards, like maybe if anybody's listening, they would have like a United card or a Southwest card or something like
Right.
that. Those cards earn points just in those systems.
Right. In
So
that
if you
particular
had a
airline.
Southwest card, you only
Yeah.
earn Southwest points.
Right.
But if you have like a Chase Sapphire card, then you earn points that you can use across lots of different things that are travel categories.
Wow.
Yeah,
That's really exciting.
it is. Yeah. And the beauty of it is, $1,300, $1,400 a month is pretty manageable for most people. I think most Americans are spending more like $2,000 a month at least for
Wow.
a family of three, just on regular expenses, like without your housing costs and things. So if as long as you're responsible and you have a pretty good credit score, it's like very, very feasible for most people.
Wow.
So
That's
yeah.
cool. So where have you, what is the highlight? Like if you could list off one place that you've been that you would say, if you can travel, you need to go here, where would that be?
Oh, that's so hard. It's hard to answer because everybody travels so differently.
Yeah.
Like some people love beach vacations and some people love the
Yeah.
city or the
Yeah.
mountains. What kind of traveler are you?
Uh, well, I've traveled primarily domestic, and I like a little bit of everything. Like I like to go, I've been to the cities, I live at the beach, I grew up in the mountains. So
Okay. Yeah.
I mean, now Eastern mountains, not the Western mountains. So there is a difference, but yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
I just like going places.
Yeah. I mean, it's such a hard question to answer, but some of my favorite places, my kids will tell you instantly, hands down, going to Guatemala is their favorite place in the
Really?
world. There is this amazing lake community there that is surrounded by volcanic mountains, and it's called Lake Atitlan. And
Okay.
all of the little villages around the lake are like very steeped in traditional culture. So the women are still all dressed very traditionally. All the food is market based. It's small and walkable, and You ride tuk-tuks around, and it is stunningly gorgeous because you're on this volcanic mountain or mountain lake that you can swim in and kayak on. And it's basically pure heaven, and you feel like you're going back in time.
Wow. That sounds
Yeah.
really cool. To look that one up.
So, yeah. So actually, the kids and I went there on our trip around the world, and we've started making an annual trip. I also run group trips called Widows in
Okay.
the Wild.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah. So, and we've started doing it with kids as well. So 2 years in a row now, we've led a trip to Guatemala with the kids, and everybody who's been on the trip is like, it's kind of like a life-changing experience because you're like in a completely different culture, and your kids gain a lot of perspective going through something like that.
Oh, for sure. I mean, I'm just thinking about your kids and just the stories that they can tell, whenever they get a little older, and they're just looking back on their childhood and realizing that their childhood was so awesome compared to to the other people that they're going to be around. It's like, I traveled around the world. We saw all these cool things, and the other kids are like, hey, I'm stuck in a building for 12 years.
Yeah, I know. Sometimes I need to be like, okay, just like calm down. They just let them have like a normal childhood too.
Oh, come on. No, I think, you know what? I think that's so awesome. I think we get so caught up in this, the structure of our system that we don't think about, like, because as a teacher, as an educator, you kind of know this, that, you're so regulated by the things that you have to teach that you miss out on so much other stuff. I mean, at the lower grades, I'm sure that there's, like there's milestones or whatever, but as they get older, like there's so much that's missed because they're so focused on the book. Like what your kids have experienced with you over the last few years and being able to travel. I mean, that there's no price tag you can put on that. I mean, I'm sure you could if you tried, but I mean, that's incredible. That's so awesome.
It's been amazing. And I think domestically, like, for somebody like you, have you been to Seattle?
I have not. I actually had that on my list before I got pregnant. I was going to go on the the PNW. Is that what they call it?
Pacific
Northwest.
Yeah. And that's how Olympic National Park is just like I actually haven't been to the national park yet, but like such a good location in the country. It's on the coast, and there's a national park, and there's the city. It's like got everything.
Yeah, I've been wanting to go that way for a few years, actually. That and my idea was to fly into San Francisco. I was going to take my daughter. We were going to do this. We were going to go fly into San Francisco, and we were going to head north on the parkway, and we were just going to go, and whatever we came across along the way, that's what we were going to stay on. But my idea was that we were going to through Northern California and into Oregon and then into Washington, and then we were going to wind up in British Columbia and Vancouver. Like that was my goal.
Amazing.
I'm like, I bet it's fantastic. And then I got pregnant. I'm like, well, that's not going to happen right now. So
in the future, as you're talking, of course, my mind could like, this is what I do now, but I'm like, I'm pretty sure you could make that trip happen for like 20,000 points round trip per person.
Wow. And that's incredible though. Like just there's a little bit of work that you have to do to get to that point, but that's really not unattainable, like in the grand scheme of things, which that's fantastic.
Like, once you learn sort of the simple system, which is obviously what I teach and what I do, it becomes kind of like just part of what you do. And people get a little overwhelmed by, there's like lots of noise if you start paying attention to it, and especially like on Instagram, or there's so much information, but it can also just be super simple, and like you learn a few steps, and then you're just saving yourself thousands of dollars every time you travel. So it's changed my travel life for sure. So
I bet. Well, I'm just thinking about, I have some trips I need to take here in the future. I'm thinking, man, I need to start working on getting it, get me one of them credit cards and start working on getting my points together.
That's right. Well, I'm happy to walk you through it.
Yeah, right. I'd be like, hey, Tiff, I need help. And I'm sorry, I keep calling you Tiff. I don't know if you like that or not. Okay.
That's fine.
So you created this for people, but primarily for widows, and trying to help with that mission. How well has that been received from the widow community? I mean, that's how I found you. And for anyone that's listening to this, I mean, I actually, Tiffany and I are on the same community, widow community, and I had seen her put a post out about traveling, And I messaged her because I'm like, that is so cool. And I want to talk to you. So that's how we met, like that way. So I
Yeah.
don't know you otherwise, but I mean, I'm just curious, like how much response have you gotten from that?
Yeah, I think quite a bit actually. There's a handful of people who are, I will say, like maybe self-motivated to figure it out on their own. And so when I share tidbits, I do most of my sharing on Instagram. So especially in stories, like I try to share news that's happening or great deals that are out there, things like that. And also just general travel tips. I've also recently started a YouTube channel because I know that um, traveling for widows isn't just about money. Like there's the financial piece, but then there's also like the it's hard to even think about doing this without my spouse, or worries about the safety, about the logistics, having to do everything on your own. So I'm trying to address several of those things on YouTube as well, to give people as many tools as possible. But yeah, I have a few dozen students in my group, in my community, and they're, I mean, some of my favorite stories is like some women whose children are grown and they have travel goals,
Yeah.
and a couple of them came to me and were like, hey, I'm booking, actually separately, two women, I'm booking trips to Patagonia. One was like, and then I'm going to go to Antarctica, and I really want to fly business class. And I was like, we can make it happen. And I
Okay.
remember one of the first ones, we got her all the way to Patagonia and back in business class. She saved like $6,700 and ended
Wow.
up paying, like, I think cash out of pocket was like $250 or something
Wow.
for,
That is
I think
amazing.
like something crazy, like 60 hours of flying or something.
Yeah. That
So,
doesn't sound, wow. That is
yeah.
crazy. So is
Yeah.
that, I
So,
mean, that's what I'm going to sound really ignorant. So is that just the points that they accumulated on credit cards, or is this some other programs that they were
no,
using, or?
yeah, that's what it is. It's just sticking with the program and learning the system of typically they open a card every 90 days or so. And then we talk about like what to do after you open a card, when do you cancel them and close them and all of that. And
Wow.
um, what is the next appropriate card? How do you plan for a big trip like that, or just earn for general travel? So
That's really cool. So now are you officially like a travel agent, or
I'm
this
not,
is just
no,
this is just this
no,
program that now that this is this stemming from that program that you said that you had watched and learned from, that course, that small course or whatever?
yeah, I mean, I learned some things there, and then I sort of just dove in headfirst and learned a lot on my own. Yeah. So the
Wow.
actual course is called the Travel More Method for Widows. It's only for the widow
Okay.
community. I just
Okay.
love working with this community.
Of
I
course.
just,
Yeah.
as I'm sure you know from doing these interviews, like people just come out the other side of this grounded and real, and
Yeah.
I just think it's like everything's very authentic.
Yes.
So that's, and I think especially people who are choosing to do things with their life like traveling, and they want to like move forward in a positive way,
Yeah.
they just have this amazing mindset of like, yeah, this has been really freaking hard, and I want to make something of my life or show my kids that we're capable, or
Yeah.
you know
And I think, yeah, I think you hit it. It's a, it seems to me that there are, like in the widowed community, you kind of have, it kind of splits. Like you've got the ones that are kind of just stuck,
yeah,
and they are just so stuck. And I've watched this one woman in particular in the widowed community, and we lost our husband about the same time, and she's still very stuck, very like still like just really grieving, and just, and I feel bad for her because it's like she's never, like she's just stuck, like she's just there and she's not going anywhere. And then
yeah,
I see other people, like yourself and myself and other widows who have just embraced the life that they have left, and it's like, yes, this horrible thing happened to my spouse, and yes, I'm still grieving, and yes, I still miss him, however, I'm still here. I
yeah,
still have life to live. A lot of us still have kids to raise. We still have things to do. I find it so interesting at how people choose to go through life, like especially once they've gone through this traumatic situation. in some sort, I mean, they're horrific, what some people have endured, to just be so stagnant versus just saying, I'm just going to live. If I
Yeah.
can't live for myself, I'll live for him, or I'll live for her, and just really just keep going with my life. So I really think that what you're doing is awesome. I love
Thank
that you're
you.
doing it. And, the widow community, I think we feel so ostracized, because a lot of times we feel like we're on our own little island.
Yeah.
Like we're,
Yeah.
like no one understands, no one gets it. For me, when my husband died, I was 32, with
Mhm.
my daughter and, my stepson, who was, kind of plucked up and moved back to his mom's house. But no one could relate to me. I didn't, none of my friends understood. I mean, my parents, I mean, they're still together and everything's good. My close friends, my family. But I did notice it's almost like I have, and there's a word for it, and I can't think of it at the moment, but like you kind of like just almost like a radar. Like whenever,
Mhm.
like you start, you recognize that these people around you that you've known all along, but you never really considered. Like I think about my grandmothers, both of them, my grandfathers passed away, and I didn't really think about it until I was in this situation, and I'm like, oh, they've been through this. Now, neither
Yeah.
of them, neither of them really had anything to tell me, and that's okay. They were much older in their life. You
Yeah. It's
know,
different.
is much different, much
Yeah.
different. But I found that the online community was a much better place to connect with other people who close to the same age, similar situations, having
Yeah.
kids.
Absolutely.
So
Well, and I felt like, there's a few travel groups that are for solo mom
mhm.
travelers. And I remember finding that group and being like, oh, awesome. Like, this is so great. I'm going to be solo traveling with my kids. And for whatever reason, I realized it wasn't widowed moms. It was just like moms who choose to leave their husbands back home and travel on their own, or sometimes single moms.
Yeah,
But I was like, I don't
it's
know.
not the same.
We have like other
Yeah,
widowed parents doing this.
yeah,
So that's a huge part of the reason that I keep the program just for widows, because I'm like, there is something special about knowing,
yeah,
like, you get it, I get it. These are unique challenges and circumstances.
yeah.
Like, nobody else has to pack a death certificate when they cross a border, you
Right.
know? Like, we
That's
have to
right.
think about stuff like that,
That's
right?
right. And
So,
all the documentation you need for your kids, in order for them to get a passport or whatever, if that, you have to give them the birth certificate, the death certificate,
yeah.
all that stuff. And it's just like, these extra things that you have to do and remember.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So,
One of the quotes I've been seeing floating around social media lately says that I'm not going to get it exactly right, but it was something like travel gives you the ability to see that the life you're living is not the only possibility,
oh, I like
or
that.
not the only possible life. Yeah. And every time I see it, I'm like, man, that hits so hard. There is something about, even if you're just traveling to like, the next city over,
Right.
you just, I feel like it just kind of snaps you out of your reality enough to
Hmm.
be like, okay, my life is, my bubble is sad and hard and difficult, and like there are so many other realities, especially when you go to other cultures and you're like, oh, three generations of a family are living under one roof,
Right.
or you know what I mean? Like there's so many different family scenarios and life scenarios, and it just, I don't know, it just changes your mindset so much. Like there's a lot of life to still live, you
Oh,
know?
for sure. There's so much to see. There's so much out
Yeah.
there that we just don't know. And I mean, you were kind of talking about at the beginning of like, there's so much that I don't know.
Yeah.
There's so much about our, about society and about the world and just everything that, we think we know until you get out of it. You're like, wow, I did not know any of that.
Yes.
I
Yeah.
did not know.
I did
No
not know
clue.
what I did not know.
That's funny.
Yeah.
So we were talking about about the widow community. Um, what advice do you have for those widows, like whenever they're like thinking about doing it, but they're nervous, or they are like worried about their safety or whatever? What are some tips that you have for them?
Yeah. I was actually just making a video about this last week, because it's definitely the biggest thing that I hear from people, um, that people are just nervous, right, about going out on their own. And I think there's things you can do to be prepared. There's like if we're talking about international travel, let's say there's like registering with the embassy, there's making sure that you have cell service one way or another by the time you get
Right.
over there. Um, there's making sure you have all the correct documentation and that you share your itinerary with a trusted friend back home, and just like all these sorts of things to be prepared.
Yeah.
Um, it's not like it's going to make it so that the inevitable, you can't prepare for everything, of
Right.
course,
Right.
but
Something's going to happen. You just try to mitigate it as much as you can.
yeah, I think everybody's number one biggest fear is like, what if something happens to me and I'm with
Yeah.
my kids in a
Yeah.
place where I don't know the language or the culture, or
Right. Yeah.
um and so there's travel insurance for things like that, and there's having Google Translate downloaded on your phone with the
Yeah.
language loaded, like the emergency number in your phone and your kids know where it is, those
Yeah.
kinds of tips.
Yeah. No, I love
So there's
that.
all those logistical things, but I think for me, it's more like trust yourself
Yeah.
that you're capable, you know,
Yeah.
and
I think that's a big part of it. I mean, when we lose our spouse, I mean, there's a part of us that goes with them, like that
yeah,
security
for
and
sure.
that, that trust and whatever. So, rebuilding that within ourselves and, feeling like you are capable and like, believing that you can do hard things. And I think that, traveling is a big one. I mean, I know a lot of widows who won't go anywhere because they're fearful that something, that list of things that you were just saying, that something will happen to them or, they'll get lost or whatever. And yeah, so I think that's great.
Yeah, I
So,
think the other thing I would say is to start small,
oh, yeah.
like take a little weekend road trip, right? And
Yeah,
then maybe fly a couple hours away, but like, you don't have to fly halfway across the world,
right.
right? Just something to get out of your regular routine and
Yeah,
build some positive memories.
I think some people also are afraid to go by themselves.
Hmm.
I think they're afraid to go do things, just do anything by themselves.
Yeah.
You can have all the wanderlust in the world, but if you're afraid to go somewhere by yourself, you know, like, and you can have a good friend, but
Yeah. And I think that's okay. I mean, I actually talk to lots of people too who don't. They like bring family members or bring friends, or that's part of why we do Widows in the Wild, because people maybe they don't have somebody to travel with, and so they want to go with a group. But yeah, like you don't have to go alone, right? You can, I don't know, that's another thing that I feel like I advocate for regularly, is to be bold in asking for help and for support. And, you know, maybe if you ask your friend, she'd take a few days off a week of work and come with you,
yeah, I mean, you
doesn't
won't
hurt
know
to ask.
unless you ask.
That's right.
That's right. So you are a very busy lady. How can people find you? Like, you mentioned a couple of different projects. So what is the best way for people to find you if they want to learn more about what you're doing?
Yeah. So, like I said, I'm primarily on Instagram, but I'm working on growing the YouTube. And I really just hope that that will be like a plethora of free, helpful information for people. So, those platforms are both called Rebuilding Joy. So, you can find me there. And yeah, I think that's probably the best route.
So, talking about rebuilding joy, um, what are some of the strategies that you've used to help rebuild joy in your life? From being a widow and up until this point. I mean, being remarried. Like, how do you build that?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's multifaceted. Obviously,
It is.
yeah, obviously travel's been like my primary big
Yeah.
thing. But for a couple of years after Mike died, I was very fortunate to live by Lake Michigan, in just outside of Chicago. And so to me, like there was something about going to the sunrise every morning,
Yes.
and uh that was my time to connect with God, and that was my time for quiet and reflection, being in nature. So that was huge for me. I also found like if there were ever times where I was getting in a rut, not like crying, right? Like obviously you're gonna cry and feel all
Right.
that, but I was feeling like stuck-ish.
Hmm.
I've just always been sort of this way, but I just move my body, go for a run or a walk or yoga or whatever. That really helped me.
I like that.
And then like I was also pretty intentional about trying to spend time with my kids uninterrupted. And I'm not talking about like hours at a time because it's really hard when you're solo parenting because
Yeah,
there's
for
too
sure.
much to do.
Yeah,
But like, even if I could give them like 15 to 30 minutes just with them, like put my phone away, just like tell them, I have a half an hour. Let's go play catch or let's do whatever. And like, it was good for me and them, you
yeah,
know? Um, and on the flip side of that, when they were littler and I was running the house on my own, I know that I would let them watch TV while I cooked and did the dishes. And even though it was more screen time than I wanted, I just needed that time for myself.
for sure.
And like
Yeah,
most days I would cry and
screen time rules kind of go out the window whenever you're doing it by yourself. You just gotta
mhm,
do what you gotta do.
you got to do it. Yeah, exactly.
Well,
So yeah, I
I've
mean now I think it's about trying to learn to settle into a life that's a little bit more stable than in those
yeah,
years right after Mike died.
yeah,
Um, Having occasional trips and travel is still really important to me, but like just enjoying home and rest and like the family that we're building. And
yeah.
so,
And that's that. I think that's really great though, just to embrace the life that you're recreating and rebuilding. And like this next chapter, we always, in the widow community, we always talk about chapters, right? Chapter 2, some of us are a few chapters along, but depending on how you're defining your chapters, right?
yeah, chapter
Um,
6, 7.
yeah. Yeah, but I like that. I mean, and like I said, I'm kind of doing the same thing and just kind of rebuilding, like restructuring the next chapter and how it looks and what it looks like. So, well,
Yeah,
Tiffany, I've really enjoyed this conversation with
me
you.
too.
Thank you so much for your time.
Yeah,
I
thanks
will
for
give you
having me.
one last opportunity to give any words of wisdom to our listeners today. Any last thoughts or comments?
Yeah, I did have something. Oh, I was going to say that something that one of my friends who I don't know how she had this wisdom so early on, but I remember in like it was just a couple weeks maybe after Mike died and I remember saying to her, there's days that I don't cry and it feels strange to me. Like I can go to the beach and I like maybe I'm laughing with the kids and it just feels weird, And I remember her saying to me, your grief is not going anywhere for a really long time. And when those moments of joy and laughter and happiness happen, just let them and don't
Yes.
feel guilty about it. Just let it in. And I think that really gave me the permission to like do that incrementally more and more over the years to the point where now I'm like my life is full of joy again.
Yeah.
And and of course I miss my husband, but I don't feel that deep grief that I felt right after he died. And to me that's a hopeful message. I think there's a lot of talk about how grief lasts forever and, and to I understand that to a certain extent, but I also feel like I want to give people the hopeful message that it's not going to hurt like that forever and your life can be beautiful again.
Absolutely. And I think that I 100% agree with you. I think that, I definitely think that people, I think you make it what it is. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
you will be hurting. There will be pain, but you don't have
Oh,
to live there.
yeah.
Like it evolves. And, being, your comment about going to the sun, going and watching the sunrise. I'm a sunrise person too. Like I 20 minutes from the beach. So I go and on the East Coast and I'll go and watch the sunrise. Like that's my thing. I
Yeah.
love doing it. So I totally get that. And, it's just like that sense of renewal and
Yeah.
connection and just
The sun
very
rises every
peaceful.
day,
Yep.
you know?
Yep. I
It's
love it.
feels good.
I love it. All right. Well, again, thank you so much for being here today, folks. If you if you got something from our conversation today, which today was loaded with a whole bunch of wisdom and a whole bunch of great stuff, definitely like it, share it with your friends, and make sure that you give Miss Tiffany, send her all the love. We want to see your comments. We want to know what you think. Let's
Yeah,
see
and if
here.
you're interested in travel, I hope you'll come check it out and maybe join us.
Yes, definitely. I think that you should definitely go find Tiffany on her Instagram. I will post it in the show notes, so definitely check her out. Check out her YouTube. Sounds like there's gonna be a lot of
Yeah.
information out there. So,
Hopefully.
friends, as you know, I like to say, death is inevitable, chaos is optional, and we'll see you next week on the flip side of death. Take care, guys. Bye bye.
Bye.